Hello, everybody. This is Max Farrell from DexFXMarkets.com. In this segment, we're going to talk about some of the simple rules in setting your dynamic strike for the Dex Atomic system here, even through news. And I think it's something that if we act the same way all the time, we should be safe within the parameter of news. Okay? And what I mean by that is that when news is happening, it's all over the place. You know, whether or not to trade during news or not trade during news or what have you, we should be oblivious to all other factors outside the price action. Okay? And here's why. If we act within price action mentality, I think we're going to be just fine no matter if there's news happening or not. So here's what I would like to do. Okay? The rule set is that on an arrow, if it is above the MA, on the 50 MA, okay, in the direction of where if it's above, it should be a buy arrow, okay, a buy arrow, and if it's below, it should be a sell arrow of the time of the signal, okay? So if it's an above arrow, it has to be, if it's a buy arrow, it has to be above the MA, and if it's a sell arrow, it has to be below the MA. And this will keep us very, very safe. Now, when it is a buy arrow and it's above the MA, we have to go back down to what we call the valley, the first valley we get to, right? Or superstructure, which is a red line, a red-green line zone, okay, or a zone of support and resistance, right? Two reds like this, each red can be actually housed as a main structure, or you can go into the middle. If you get a green with a red, the stronger of the two is the side that you want to stay on, okay? So like on this particular pair, when it fired off, it was down here. So you could actually possibly even looked at this as, you know, this is a possibility of resistance here. So I probably wouldn't have gotten into this trade with this much resistance on. But if I would have came back down, my solution here is 60.04, you see? So I come down to the closest structure, okay? That's this area. So from this red line all the way up to here, this is the 6606. This is the zone, okay? And we create a zone even around the red. So anywhere between 6604 and 6606 is my zone that I want to be able to find a strike in. I find something in here, I place the working order golden. If I don't get filled, I don't get filled, okay? But first requirement, arrow has to be on the proper side of the MA. Okay, rule number one. Rule number two, the zone has to be within, if it's within 5 pips, it may be disqualified. Okay, so the point being is that this particular arrow, when it fired, when you're back testing, would have been up here. How many pips away was that? 6606 or 6604? And the first zone that you could have used, there's this red one right here. You couldn't have used this one. It would have been OTM, right? But you would have used this one. Now, you would have went OTM for a minute and gotten back in, right? And you would have won. If you would have gotten an OTM trade later on out of here and maybe rebought this one that you just did, you would have made some pretty good money on this trade this morning, right? So that's a great opportunity for you to be able to do it. If you've picked the right zone in the right area, then you can definitely use that OTM mentality. I did so yesterday and got really good money on it. Okay. Now, within this, like this red zone here, you could pick anywhere in between in here. And even from the outside of this zone, right? For this red line, any red line's a really hard, really workable structure. And then you come to here and you come to the outside of that red zone, right? So if that's the middle, if that's where the zone is, you find like it's usually where the wicks are, right? It's usually where the wicks are at for that zone. Okay? So rule number one, the arrow has to be on the side of the MA that it's supporting, right? It doesn't matter if it's a buy trend or a sell trend or what have you. It has to be on that side, okay? And I'll go back and show you some solutions here. Got this trade, came back to, because it would have been up here, we would have came back to this zone. This is a win. We wouldn't have gotten into this one up here. Been too far back, right? So we won this one. So these are the 9 o'clock structures, right? From 9 to 10, whatever it is. I don't think I'm going to use the 8 o'clock. So I'm just going to go down the line. So we got 1 and 0 so far. And we're looking for the 9 o'clock structure. Right? That's 7 o'clock. There's a 9 o'clock right there. Now, taken off. We're not using that one. We could. I mean, yeah, if you want to do those, yeah. But let me tell you, you're going to have, you'll have more losses. You won't have more losses than wins, but you'll have more losses. Okay? And this is about putting perfection into your Nadex, right? The TNT system of waiting for a trend to occur and wait for negation, do all that stuff, that's not needed anymore. What's needed is if it's if the pair is above, we go back to dynamic structure or what have you. Okay, and we utilize that. So this particular pair, 0 trade. So we're in 1-0 still. Here's 10 o'clock. Now we could have used this one. This one is definitely used as 10 o'clock. It's not finished out yet. And 83.68. It's sitting at 83.70 right now. So it's really going to push that. I usually like around a green line, a light green line. I like to find out where my zone's at. Where does my zone really sit? Right? And it's that right there where it sits at. That's a pretty strong zone. That's only like a pip and a half difference. So somewhere in between here and here was the area to have the support at, right? So this will support this area here. As you see, it's sort of dropping down at the moment, but that doesn't really matter. So the 9 o'clock one is that a buy arrow has to be above. Okay? And this one didn't have it. Now, could you have taken a trade? Absolutely. That's your prerogative. But the training here is stay with this process of the buy arrows being above. Right? Because usually a buy arrow below doesn't give you the structure that you need unless you got something really, really good. But even then, in the middle of news, like this 6 o'clock arrow right here, look at this. If you would have came back, you wouldn't have known all this. Maybe this red line was here. You would have seen this. Now remember, it has to be 83.64, 83.59. This is right at that level at 5 pips, right? You want it 5 pips or more, 6 pips or more, or what have you. You know, and then you grab that zone where that wick shows up at, right there. Maybe that puts you out. 83.58, yeah, that would put you out. Okay, so would you have gotten into this trade? You know, you would only had this area to work with support and that red line, and you would have lost. This would have been a losing trade at that point. But if we stayed with our plan, you would have gotten into this trade early morning. Now, again, we're back. So I got to stay at the 9 o'clock time, okay? I can't prove and disprove every single arrow, but I can tell you right now, every arrow is tradable. Just has a different risk and reward process, right? This is winning again, so we're good. So that's, we don't know about that one yet, but right now, if we just did the 9 o'clock hour, we have the win there. So we're 2-0. Euro JPY. Arrow above. Okay, here's a 10 o'clock one. Easily doing its thing, right? The arrow was all the way up here when it fired. Easily came back down to here. Would have been OTM. We probably made a mint on this one. Probably put a couple OTMs on it. Arrow below or arrow above with a sell. So no trade at that one, right? 9 o'clock. So now we're 3-0. 9 o'clock time. Down here, this arrow would have been up here when the signal fired, right? Because it's the open of this bar, which is up here. So this would have been another push to go arrow above OTM major money. Where would you have put the signal? If it was up here, you had to be within 5 pips. That's not within 5 pips. So your best superstructure is right here, as you can kind of see right here, right? This is that little zone that you're in. You got this, all of these, this little portion right here, living in that world, and that's 97, 90 or 07, 97, 07, 08, 08. That would have been within more than 5 pips. It would have came down, bought in, maybe went OTM. It wouldn't have gone OTM, but it would have picked up that trade and super win, right? This one as well. When this fired off, it was right here. We couldn't have used this. We would have had to come all the way back down here. We probably wouldn't have gotten filled. So we'll count this one down here. So that's 4-0. Great Britain Pound JPY. Again, arrow above, no trade. Okay. Great Britain Pound USD. There's the 8 o'clock. Here's 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock. Would have been firing up here. We could have used this. It would have went OTM during that first bar, but a big win. Excuse me. USDC 80. Arrow below. Big win. We came up to this dark green line, place our number, big huge win. USD CHF. Here's the 9 o'clock. This arrow is down here. We couldn't have used this. We would have to come up to super structure up here, the dynamic structure right here, somewhere within this little world, right about there, right? 98.25, boom, got picked up. 98.25, 98.21, 4 pips, boom, picked up quickly, right? Even if we put a working order there, it would have gotten picked up, 25 bucks. Super win. Super win. Come back up to this structure, easily got picked up. Okay, so you can see that it has benefit. Stay with that benefit. You know, this particular pair right here, at the 9 o'clock time, this arrow would have been down here. It would have been below. That's great. You would have came back to structure, which would have been this green line or halfway in between somewhere. Would you have gotten picked up? 97 down to, it's within 5 pips. It possibly would have gotten picked up. Could you have come back down further in? You can usually, if you have to validate, here's what you have to do, right? You have to find where's the, because you wouldn't have been able to see this over here yet, right? So you would have been looking at this line here and this line here. Where's the head and shoulders there? So you would have had to come like right into that area from here to here. Somewhere in this area, you would have been getting bought in. You see how well that validated there later on, 4 or 5 bars later. And it won. Big too, I might add. Okay. Again, this is news. This is news related too, but we're winning. You're trading during news. You're not even worrying about it. Okay. Arrow above, trade to superstructure within 5 pips. Okay. Easy. JPY. Now let's see how that looks when we trade the 9 o'clock for the 2 hours, which are expiring here in just a minute or two. AUD USD. Arrow above, back to superstructure, got picked up. Boom. Lovely. Big giant win. News related. Audi JPY. No 9 o'clock. Euro Great Britain pound. No 9 o'clock. Euro JPY. There's a 9 o'clock. Okay. This pair started out right here above the MA. We would have came back down here. I don't think 70. By the way, that previous one was 6 to 1. No, we're 6 to 0. We haven't lost yet. 120.88. That's 18 pips. I don't think we would have gotten bought on this one. We wouldn't have got picked up on this one. Okay. Maybe once it passed north here and created here, you could probably offer a buying opportunity there and kind of stay with that. Maybe. But again, let's not get suspect and try to create a whole new rule. Euro USD. Okay. Now, see, look, even at the USD, I think this is a good rule to just keep no matter what, right? Arrow above, look, see, arrow above, boom, back to structure right here. Would have gotten picked up easy, 4 pips off, ready to go. Sayonara. No trade on that one, right? This one got picked up, that one got picked up. See, so I think this is the rule we're going to live with now. Okay? Euro or Great Britain pound JPY. This is a 7 o'clock structure, but I want you to see this too. You got to go back to structure. You just can't go back to the first one that has money. You got to go back to structure. And where is structure? If you really wanted to focus it, it would be all the way down here in the middle somewhere, right? From this line to this line. If you come to secondary structure off of a green line, that would be right here, right? You have to find that, or maybe even right here. You know, this little structure, see 1, 2, 3, 4. See, that's all. See all the coincidence in there? It's huge. And you would have definitely been, you would have had an OTM opportunity and buy. You would even had an OTM if you did this trade up here. Massive open opportunity there. Huge. Right? Because remember, you got to come back to structure. It can't be within 5 pips either. You got to come back to structure that's outside that 5 pips or more. All right, so this one right here, you wouldn't have bought at 3 o'clock in the morning. This line here, you would have had to come all the way back up to structure, you know, somewhere up in here, this red line right here, to actually get it. And you would have won. If you would have placed a working order all the way up here, this would have won. Easy. Right there. Because you would have bought 36 and it's finished off at 25. You see? So this is beginning to show you that when the pair, see, so you wouldn't have been able to get into, I think you would have, no, you would have been really super close to this one. I don't know if you would have got this one. You wouldn't have done that, wouldn't have done that. You would have done this one, back to structure, would have gotten filled. We don't know. This is not structure right here. You would have been on here. You wouldn't have filled that one. But again, this is not about trading every single one. Let's do Great Britain Pound USD. No trade. So now we're like 8-0. We haven't lost one yet when we follow this rule. Boom, boom. No trade. Where's this one at? Let's look at this one here, because structure happened right here. We got to come back all the way up to here. We don't get filled on that one. Right? And fill back to here. We got to go back. We can't use this one. We have to use this one. You see, so once you start back tracing to this process, you'll start to see if it's below, it's an opportunity. Now, you could still trade the other ones, but let me tell you, you're going to be sweating a lot more. And I don't want you sweating. I want you making money. Remember, you find that consistency, which we just did. You see, even though this was a win, we could have came back and like validated, all right, well, I got here, and here. I got all this validation here, which stipulates, and you could do that. But again, if you don't want to sweat, you wouldn't trade this one, right? You just follow the rule. If it's above, trade it back to structure, and you'll win, right? If it's below, like this one was all, look, and here's, I think here's our first loss. USD CAD back at 11 o'clock last night, okay? 11 o'clock yesterday. Heavy news, but it doesn't matter. Here's your first loss. It happened here. You would have came back to structure, not to here, right? Where's your, actually, you know what? you would have been very close. No, you would have still would have lost, because I would have came back into here somewhere in between structure, right? So 32.51, and you would have lost. One loss. So 10-1 so far. About the norm. Okay? Wouldn't have gotten into that trade. Would have gotten to this one. Wouldn't have gotten to that one. Would have gotten to this one. Back to structure right here. Picked up. One. So it is 17-1 now. And we could do this all day long. I can go to every single one of these pairs and do that. You're going to have a 90% plus. Okay? This pair, this particular one, we would have been down here when it opened. You could have came back in, let's see, what is that, 98.14. So 19, so you would have to be up here, and you would have won. Right? Because this is where we won at, right here. Right, boom. Back up to structure. Picked up. Won. This one, you would have been just under the line, but super close, right? We want to be within 5 pips if we can, right? Here, another win. So now we're like 23-1. So it's there. The money is there. The process is there. You know, on the 1 hour and the 2 hour process. This one fires off. It's 11 o'clock right now. Where are we going to go? Okay. All right. I'm Max. This is Dex. We'll see you next time. And as always, trade well.